If you've ever said something in the heat of the moment and just wished you could take it back, or made a decision when you are exhausted, stressed out, overwhelmed, and then regretted it later, this episode is for you. Fostering can feel intense, and when everything feels urgent, we just react. But what if we don't just have to react? You're listening to Fostering Kingdoms, faith at the heart of fostering. Today I'm sharing a 3-step framework that is simple and easy to remember, and it has changed the way that I lead my home. Regulate, decide, release. You don't have to react to every conversation, to every situation. You don't have to answer everything immediately. And you don't have to relive what's already been done. You can slow it down. So let's talk about the how, but also the why. Because your nervous system matters, and I know that it's not talked about enough, especially in faith spaces, but also as foster carers, there's so much emphasis on the children and not enough on us as adults. But when you come to understand that our nervous systems, they're constantly scanning for safety. When something feels overwhelming, unfair, loud, chaotic, our body responds before our minds even have time to catch up. And it's not weakness. This isn't about shame or adding guilt, but it's about awareness and understanding that it's just biology. But when we live in a heightened state for too long, that becomes our default setting. We become quicker to react, we become less patient, more tired, and more guarded. And slowly over time, that state can actually shape our tone, our leadership, and even our faith. And it's not because we don't love God, or our lives, or our jobs, or the children that we care for, but because we're simply dysregulated, because we are still human. We have big emotions, so learning that our emotional health, it is spiritual stewardship. And for a long time, I personally thought that being spiritually mature just meant being calm all the time. Regardless of the situation that I'd find myself in, I could just breeze through the day. But actually what I'm learning is that our emotional health, it's not about never feeling overwhelmed, stressed, burnt out, but it's actually noticing what's going on inside. And how am I choosing to respond rather than just react? And in James 1:19, scripture reminds us, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. This isn't just behavior advice. This isn't just something that we can just breeze over. God is showing us regulation. He's showing us to listen, to speak slowly, and to react slowly. This is everything slowed down. This is how our nervous system should respond. This is about having emotional awareness. And personally, I think that is true personal strength. To have awareness over ourselves and to have things under control rather than just exploding all the time. And this really matters long term because through Fostering Kingdoms, we are here to help you, not just through the season that you're in right now, but throughout the longevity of your role as a foster carer. It is our jobs as foster carers to protect our own internal world, to learn, to grow, to have awareness, and to teach others around us. But also learning for ourselves that reacting, it is constantly exhausting. That when we learn to regulate, that actually creates so much stability within ourselves. So when we learn to regulate, we actually learn to respond instead of just reacting. We learn to parent instead of just being defensive. We learn to lead instead of just exploding. And we learn to teach instead of just shaming. And what I've learned over time is our homes actually feel different the more that we can regulate ourselves. They feel safer, quieter, and more anchored. The rhythms work better. And understanding that our nervous systems are so important because the children that we care for, they actually borrow our nervous system. So when we are calm and steady and grounded, the children then they actually learn how to behave in that way. But if we're constantly frustrated, angry, explosive, the children in our care will continue to behave in those ways too. This isn't about guilt or shame. It is just about awareness. So one of the biggest things that we can do is simply pause. Learning about regulation, it doesn't mean suppression. We're not asking you to just pretend that everything's okay, push it all down, and we'll deal with it later on. It is about creating pauses throughout our day, just having a breath before we speak. If we need to just have a glass of water, or even stepping out of the room, or learning to just lower our tone intentionally mid-conversation can have a huge impact. Choosing to be silent rather than escalating things, or to simply just listen and not respond. Having that pause, it changes everything. And it doesn't mean that we're ignoring behaviours, far from it. It actually means that we can address behaviours, situations with steadiness, not from our own adrenaline. And what I've come to learn is that is spiritual leadership. And biblically, we are taught that Jesus often withdrew before he responded. He paused, he prayed, he waited. It is wise to pause. It's not a sign of weakness if you just take a moment. And more often than not, we need to take more moments throughout the day than we actually realize. And there's another piece of regulation that I don't personally feel is spoken about enough. There's no training on this, there's no conversations on this. And it's don't make big decisions when you're emotionally dysregulated. Now, as foster carers, we can often find ourselves overwhelmed, stressed, exhausted, just frustrated, and more often than not, just hurt. And our brains shift into survival mode when we're here. And survival mode is not the right time or place to be making big decisions. Decisions that will impact placements or our boundaries or even our long-term commitments. But even to other things like saying yes or saying no. When we find ourselves dysregulated, everything can feel urgent. And I feel like sometimes we're played into this quite a lot as well. People will put so much pressure on us to give an answer immediately or to put us in situations where we feel like we had to respond. We can often find ourselves in meetings when people want an immediate response from us straight away. But what I've come to learn is one of the most spiritually mature things that we can do and for our emotions and to regulate ourselves when we find ourselves in this space of urgency is to just say, do you know what? I need some time to think about that. I'll get back to you and give them a time or a date. If you feel comfortable, just say, I just need to pray over this right now. Or you can simply say, I can't answer that right now. And it's not avoidance. That's true stewardship. And it's you showing that you actually prioritize yourself, you respect yourself, but also to others in your home. There are decisions that you make when you're tired, exhausted, burnt out. And then there's decisions that you make when you are clear, rested, and had processing time. They are rarely the same outcome. So learning to notice your energy before making big choices, it will protect your peace long term. So if you find yourself depleted, overwhelmed, triggered, just exhausted, give yourself a moment to just pause. Let your nervous system settle back down. Give yourself time to sleep on it, pray on it, and return to it when you feel ready. We're understanding that first we have to have regulation, and then the decision comes second. In Proverbs 19:2, It says, desire without knowledge is not good. How much more will hasty feet miss the way? Sometimes rushing ahead, even when we feel like there's good intentions behind it, it can cause us to miss so much wisdom. It can cause us to miss lessons and even time with God. And God doesn't ask us to decide everything immediately. Instead, God actually invites us to walk carefully on this journey. So you're allowed to create boundaries around your decision making. You're also allowed to enforce those. You're allowed to be thoughtful and to take your time. You are allowed to delay answers with discernment, and you're allowed to say yes or no from a place of calm rather than fear and panic. And sometimes just saying, I'll get back to you, is more than enough. We don't need to relive every conversation or doubt ourselves or second guess ourselves. And honestly, it has taken me a while to know that what I've said is enough. And I don't need to constantly replay it time and time again in my mind. But I've also come to learn that that's another part of regulation that often goes unnoticed because it's internal. And it's what happens after the moment has passed, when conversations are over, when decisions have actually been made, or even when the meeting has ended. For many of us, we keep carrying those conversations, replaying what was said, rewriting what we wish we had actually said, or we rehearse future conversations that haven't even happened yet. We try to relive the tone of the conversation or meeting. We try to look if there was any tension points or tiny details that we might have missed. And actually that can be really exhausting. And what I've come to find over the years is sometimes that can be more draining than the fostering moments itself. The mental replay over and over again, trying to understand, why did I say this? Why did I respond this way? Oh, I wish I hadn't have said this. I wish I'd have replied this way. This would have been a better answer. This would have sounded more professional, whatever it may be. But learning the skill to just let things be as they are has truly helped me grow as a foster carer. I've come to learn that not everything needs to be analysed, not everything needs to be corrected. I don't need to explain every small decision or answer or reply. And I don't need to spend hours reprocessing conversations I've had. Sometimes I've just learned that the healthiest response when I find myself in this overwhelm, just replaying situations, is just saying, it's happened, it's done, I'm moving on, I'm giving it to God, whatever has happened, and I can't take it back. And I've learned that that is emotional discipline, because dwelling over things, it doesn't equal responsibility. It actually takes me away from my daily responsibilities. Replaying these conversations, it doesn't equal growth. It just keeps me stuck where I was. And it kept my nervous system in a state of anxiety, trying to work out how I could reach back out and replay a conversation or try to explain myself, just wanting to be better or have a different answer. But I've come to learn, especially when it's diving into scripture, 1 Peter 5:7, it says, cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. And what I've come to learn is casting all of my anxieties on him from every conversation, from everything that I've been through in that day. It just means releasing, letting it all go, to not keep replaying conversations, to not try and hold on to things, to not try and carry the burdens of today into tomorrow. God doesn't ask us to mentally relive every single interaction, but he does invite us to hand it over to him. So if you find yourself today replaying conversations, just try saying in this moment, that moment is over, God, I give it all to you. I release it. God, I am giving it all to you. I choose peace in this moment. Lord, I am giving it all to you. And then redirect your attention. And honestly, it's going to feel very unnatural at first, but over time, you will learn to build this new habit of respond, process it briefly, release it, and move forward with the day. That alone can reduce so much mental exhaustion. Learning to just let things go. You're not detaching from everything, but you are maturing into who you're becoming as a foster carer. You're protecting your energy, you're protecting your peace, and overall, that protects your capacity to actually lead tomorrow. So when we stop reliving everything, we feel lighter, we feel less burdened, we feel less tense, less drained, and actually more present in the moment, just getting on with the day. So our 3-step framework is regulate, decide, release. So there's just a few practical anchors that you can do when you find yourself in situations where your emotions are starting to build up. So here's a few simple ways that you can regulate before you find yourself reacting. Name what you're feeling internally. Am I overwhelmed right now? Am I angry, frustrated? And just slow down your breathing. Even if it's just for 10 seconds or 3 seconds, just allow yourself time to actually breathe with using your whole lungs. Just lowering your voice instead of raising it mid-conversation, delaying your response, even just by 1 minute, just allowing yourself to kind of process what's actually been said first. And then ask yourself, what does this moment actually need from me? And these are small shifts, but small shifts over time, they build peaceful homes. There have been moments where I've realized that my reaction had more to do with my exhaustion, feeling stressed, rather than just the situation itself. And learning to notice that has honestly changed everything. I can acknowledge the situation. I know it can't be changed. And then I log situations if required. And then I just move on with my day. And the more I apply this to my own life and my home rhythms, the more others are actually noticing this too. The more that I've anchored into my faith, the more my body regulates and the calmer that I've become. Over the years, I've learned that the regulation, it isn't separate from my faith. It's actually how we live out our faith. When we pause, breathe, and choose calm, we are trusting God enough for us not to panic. We are modeling self-control. We're modeling patience and grace. We may not be modeling it perfectly, but we are modeling it intentionally. So if you have been feeling reactive lately, tired, stretched, and responding quicker than you'd like, this isn't a place of shame. It's a place of awareness. And your awareness is the beginning of change. So you don't need to fix everything today. You can simply just slow it down. One breath, one pause, one response at a time. You are allowed to lead your home from steadiness. You're allowed to regulate. You're allowed to decide. You are allowed to release. And I'm so glad that you are here listening with me today. I'll catch you on the next episode.